Let's dive into a project called A New Story for Syracuse, which is something pretty remarkable, actually. It uses the ancient power of storytelling to tackle a very modern crisis, a deep collective trauma that's been festering for decades, rooted in poverty and injustice. In order to get a sense of how this works, first you have to understand the wound itself. Now, to really get our heads around the challenge Syracuse is facing, we're not going to start with charts and graphs. No, we're going to start with a person whose story really gets to the heart of the issue. Meet Amanda. Now, Amanda is a fictional character, but her story is all too painfully real. A local social services agency created her by weaving together the real-life experiences of actual Syracuse residents. Amanda faces a daily grind against impossible odds. She walks miles to daycare, she works for a low-wage job, and she stares down a rent bill she just can't afford. Now that's the reality for thousands of people in the city. And Amanda's story isn't just a story, it's a fact for so many people in Syracuse. It's staggering. In Syracuse, almost half of all children live in poverty. Let that sink in. That's the second highest rate of child poverty in the entire nation. It's a number that represents a massive crisis for the city's next generation. And it's not just the kids. The city's overall poverty rate is more than double Onondaga County's and the state of New York's. So this isn't just a series of individual struggles, it's a blanket of poverty that covers the whole community. Now here's a really crucial point. This isn't just about economic hardship. This is a systemic wound. It's a trauma that affects the entire social body of the city. There's a name for this. Experts call it collective trauma. And you have to understand that this is not just a lot of people feeling bad at the same time. It's a tear in the very fabric of the community. It damages trust, social bonds, the very sense of safety that holds a place together. And here's the thing. This trauma didn't just happen. It was manufactured. It was built on purpose. I mean, just look at this timeline of deliberate policies designed to create segregation, from zoning laws in the 1920s to national real estate codes that literally made it an ethical duty to keep neighborhoods white, to the infamous redlining maps of the 1930s. The final blow really came in the 1960s with the construction of Interstate 81. It just tore right through the heart of the 15th Ward, displacing hundreds of Black, Jewish, and immigrant families from a vital center, cementing segregation into the city's landscape with steel and concrete. The legacy of those policies is not ancient history. It's right here, right now. Look at these numbers. In 2022, the median household income for a white family in Onondaga County was more than double that of a Black family. Let me say that again, more than double. It's not a coincidence. It's the direct result of that wounded history. So if the wound is collective, how in the world do you heal it? What if the best medicine isn't just another government program or some new policy, but something more fundamental to being human? This is the key insight from people working right here on the front lines of Syracuse, who say that to lift that blanket of poverty, you first have to heal the trauma underneath. You have to treat the wound itself, not just the symptoms. And that means you need a different kind of treatment. You see, individual trauma affects one person, right? And it's often treated individually, one person at a time. A collective trauma, like we've been talking about, damages the social fabric itself, which requires social repair. You have to find a way to reweave the connections between people. The approach that's being used is rooted in this simple but profound idea called collective narrative practice, or CNP. CNP focuses on helping the community recognize and rebuild its strengths through the power of shared stories. It says the person is not the problem is the problem. Think about that for a second. It says you aren't a homeless person, you're a person experiencing homelessness. See the shift? This empowers people to see the problem as an external force that they can act against, rather than some kind of internal failing. Now, what's so cool about this is that it's not just a feel-good idea. This is grounded in actual hard science and years of refinement in communities around the world. Okay, so that's the idea, but how do you actually do it? How do you turn this idea into a practical method for healing? How do you actually take a room full of individual I stories and forge them into a collective we voice? Well, as I mentioned, CNP is a specific methodology that guides this entire process. It's all designed to create a truly trusted space where people can share their individual, detailed stories. The key is how those stories are then woven together through a careful process of clustering ideas and building a shared narrative. When this happens, the group makes this huge transformative shift from I to we, creating a single powerful story that belongs to everyone. As the writer Arthur Frank put it, when one person finds their voice, many others begin to speak through them. This process is so empowering. It reframes people not as victims or as clients, but as experts of their own experience. The story is no longer a burden. It becomes a contribution, a piece of medicine for the entire community. So what happens when a city like Syracuse starts to heal its wounds by taking control of its own story? What does that future look like? It's a fundamental shift. Instead of a story that's defined from the outside by the statistics of poverty and what's missing, the community starts to write its own story, one that acknowledges hardship for sure, but centers on resilience, on strength, and the power to create change. And really, this whole thing boils down to power. For too long, the story of communities like Syracuse has been told by outsiders. This work enables the community to use the power of taking the pen and writing their own stories. It asks the most important questions. Who gets to control the narrative? Who decides what it all means? Ultimately, this shows that a story is so much more than a collection of words. We live in a vital, interconnected world, a world connected by stories. The stories we tell don't just describe our reality, they have the power to create a new one. Thank you.